board will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Coder, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaquero, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone.
Good morning, I'm present.
Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter.
Present.
Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman French. Alderman Vaquero. Alderman Williamson. Alderwoman Cruzen. Alderman Ogilvie. We have 21 present and we have a quorum.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries to please rise for prayer. Before we are led in prayer today by Pastor Bill Wilson, I'll ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence for the passing of Joan Clark. She was retired secretary to the Board of Aldermen. She passed away Tuesday and will be laid to rest this evening at Cudis in Afton. Joan served a lot of us for a number of years and was a fabulous assistant to the Board of Aldermen and truly dedicated to the growth and development of the city. So join me in a moment of silent prayer for her, family, and friends. Pastor Wilson.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you and begin the opening session with prayer. As we pause this weekend to remember 9/11, the 15-year anniversary, and remember those who have given their lives for our freedom, I was reminded here a few weeks ago when I was serving on a jury how much people respect all of you, how much they respect the city, and how much they respect our police officers, and really the leadership of this city, St. Louis. It was just remarkable to see people come together. So that's my prayer, that we can continue to work together, that all faiths, all people will be together. My prayer for us today. Almighty God, we pray that you would inspire us in a humble use of our freedom as we live in our community and nation. Lead us to practice respectful honor for those who pioneered and over the centuries secured the freedoms we enjoy. Bow our heads and hearts in regular prayer for the ongoing good and peace for our community. Give us energy and time to teach our youth that freedom is not a license for selfish indulgence, but that our freedom is to be used in service to others, even as your Son came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Help us to be accountable to one another in all that we say and do, respecting everyone's opinion and acknowledging the power of your forgiveness in our lives and the lives of others. O Lord, give to these men and women who guide our city the courage of leadership, that demonstrates influential wisdom, so that all people of all faiths can live in peace. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Amen.
Let's give Pastor Wilson a round of applause for all the work that he does. He works throughout the city and communities, helping people each and every day, and we really appreciate all the work that you continue to do to strengthen the city of St. Louis. Welcome back. Hopefully today will be a fast session, and it's going to be a busy session, so welcome back. I know you guys all had a really busy summer. It's going to be a busy fall. We dispense with line item number 3, introduction round of guests. Any introduction round of guests? Alderman from 23rd.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to have as my honored guest Pastor Bill Wilson, who just said the opening prayer. He has 2 guests with him, well, actually 3 with the baby. And since I don't remember their names, I would just ask that they stand up and wave or something. And then I also would like to welcome the members of the Plumbing Industry Council and thank them for the bagels and cream cheese that I really didn't need, but I ate anyway. As well as from the Plumbers Union, I have Michael Grady and Brian Chumley and Senator Harry Kennedy over in the corner. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 1st.
President, members of the board, I'd like to introduce one of our special guests that I just met 4 years ago when he called me up and said, I'm interested in being the sheriff. And I sent him back to his hometown, his home ward to get their affirmation, and he came back out and ran a wonderful race 4 years ago, came within 800 and some votes of becoming the Democratic nominee and then the sheriff. He told me, I will be back. I told him I will be with you. I was with him, and we had a victorious day in August. I'd like to introduce you to the Democratic nominee for sheriff of the great city of St. Louis, Mr. Vernon Betts.
Welcome, Vernon. Welcome.
Also, someplace around here, should be here, is our great friend Joanne Williams, who's everybody's guest all the time. And she may not be in here, but she will be here. I wanted to make sure to introduce her and say that she is my special guest.
All right, thank you. Any further introductions? Alderman from 22nd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have as my honored guest this morning Miss Stephanie Robinson with Ameren, Missouri, Chris Pickle with AT&T, and Leroy Grant with AT&T.
Alderman from 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would like to have as my special guest today Anthony Lancia with AGC Missouri and Megan Shackelford, my cohort from Jefferson City, Missouri. Thank you.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have for my honored guest today Martina Johnson from the St. Louis Association of Realtors.
Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, like to wrap us up?
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the Alderman from the 8th please leave my microphone alone. Good morning. Welcome back here on September 9th. And this is the day in what year was it? 1916 that the first Piggly Wiggly, say that this morning without 2 cups of coffee. Piggly Wiggly opened in Memphis, the first self-serve supermarket. How exciting. But more importantly, this is Buy a Priest a Beer Day. I didn't make this up. So go back to your parish and take your pastor out for a pint of porter. Thank you very much.
Just want to send out one more thank you to Ray. You guys, we really appreciate your presence here today, and we appreciate the breakfast and everything. And thanks again. Thanks again for being down here and showing your support for the Board of Aldermen. Let's give them one more round of applause for what we're doing. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for the approval of the minutes of the June 30th and July 8th meetings.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in section 6A, 6B, and 6C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from the clerk the following correspondence. I have received a certification from the Board of Elections that a petition initiative aimed at amending the charter of the City of St. Louis to consolidate the function of the Recorder of Deeds office within the office of the assessor has received the required number of signatures. The board now has 60 days from today to pass the proposed charter amendment. A copy of the proposed charter amendment has been emailed to every alderman and has been placed in every alderman's mailbox. If the Board of Aldermen chooses not to act, then the proposed charter amendment will be returned to the Board of Election so that it can put the proposed amendment on a ballot. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. I am returning to the board with my disapproval endorsed thereon pursuant to Article 4, Section 17 of the Charter, Board Bills 82 and 83.
Alderman from the first.
Did your staff member tell you pursuant to legal counsel, we're going to let him veto those because we'll see him later?
Yes, thanks.
I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. I have submitted the following individuals for appointment to the Cathedral Square Special Business District. Ms. Suzanne LeBeau, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. The reappointment of Mr. Imran Hanafi, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. The reappointment of Mr. Arthur Hoffman, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2017. The reappointment of Mr. John Oleski, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2018. And the reappointment of Mr. Michael Roth, who resides in the 20th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay.
Alderman from 28th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Cathedral Square Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's aforementioned appointments to the Cathedral Square Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. September 9th, 2016. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Central West End North Special Business District. The appointment of Mr. Rod Jones, who resides in the 28th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. I respectfully request the approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Central West End North Special Business District.
Thank you again, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's appointment of Rod Jones to the Central West End North SBD.
Moved by the Alderman from 28th, seconded by the Alderman from 13th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
September 9th, 2016. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Riverfront Hotel Community Improvement District. The appointment of Mr. Michael Barber, who resides in the Baldwin, Missouri city, and whose term will expire on May 18th, 2019. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Riverfront Hotel Community Improvement District.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's nomination to the appointment to the Riverfront Hotel Community Improvement District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
September 9th, 2016. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Great Rivers Greenway Board of Directors. The appointment of Ms. Phyllis Young, who resides in the 7th Ward and whose term will expire on January 1st, 2019. I respectfully request the approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay.
Alderman from the 9th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Great Rivers Greenway Board of Directors.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we confirm the mayor's appointment to the Great Rivers Greenway Board of Directors for Phyllis Young.
Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
September 9th, 2016, dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Convention and Visitors Commission. The appointment of Mr. Joe Hinsley, who resides in the 7th Ward and whose term will expire on November 22nd, 2019. I respectfully request the approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Convention and Visitors Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to confirm the mayor's appointment of Mr. Joe Hinsley.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th, and return the second on the motion, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That is the extent of the report of city officials.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We've dispensed with line items 8 through 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 101, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and comptroller of the city to execute a quitclaim deed to Mr. Michael F. Daniels and Ms. Ursula L. Thatch for certain city-owned property located in City Block 5427, which property is known as 6001-6007 Pershing, upon receipt of and in consideration of the sum of $15,000 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 102, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance to repeal Ordinance 69-926 and enacting in lieu thereof an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain real property owned by the city and located in City Block 661E in the city and containing a severability clause. This ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and comptroller to execute upon receipt of and in consideration of the sum of $180,139 and other good and valuable consideration, a quitclaim deed unto GSC LLC. Board Bill 103, sponsored by Alderman Vaquero, an ordinance establishing a stop site for all northbound and southbound traffic traveling on Sulphur at Potomac and all eastbound traffic traveling on Potomac at Sulphur, causing it to be a three-way stop site at the intersection of Potomac and Sulphur and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 104, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance pertaining to the Airport Authority of the City of St. Louis, repealing Ordinance 56014, which pertained to renaming that certain public airport and fields owned by the city and located in St. Louis County to Lambert St. Louis International Airport, amending Section 18.04.10 of the Revised Code, City of St. Louis, 1994 annotated, in order to change the name of the public airport and landing field to St. Louis Lambert International Airport.
Have some order.
And containing a severability clause. Board Bill 105, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance naming the real property at the south-southwest intersection of Gravois and Morganford Road, as described herein, Bosnian Sabi Park in Bevo, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 106, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the city to issue and sell its general obligation bonds, Series 2016A, in one or more series in an aggregate principal amount of $25 million for the purposes of paying the costs of the project and the cost of issuance of the bonds, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 107, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis and Alderman Rohde, an ordinance finding and declaring that there exists in the city a certain blighted area under Chapter 353 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri and under Chapter 11.06 of the Revised Code of the city. Board Bill 108, sponsored by Alderman Carter, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission and authorizing and directing the city, acting through the treasurer, to issue parking revenue bonds, Series 2016, in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $16 million, setting forth certain terms and conditions relative to such bonds and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 109, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Cruzen, Bosley, Howard, Vaquero, Ortman, Flowers, Coder, Conway, Boyd, and Cohn. An ordinance enabling the city to join the Missouri Clean Energy District pursuant to the Property Assessment Clean Energy Act in order to provide an additional authorized entity through which owners of property within the city may obtain financings for energy efficiency improvements or renewable energy improvements to their property, and containing a severability clause. That is the extent of our first readings.
Mr. Clerk, please assign Board Bill number 109 to Intergovernmental Affairs. reference to committee.
So noted. Reference to committee. To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bills 101, 102, 106, and 108. To the Streets Committee, Board Bills 103 and 105. To the Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee, Board Bill 107. And to the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 104. That is the extent of reference to committee. With the addition of Board Bill 109 to the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee.
Thank you.
And that is the extent of reference to committee.
Dispense with line item 1314, perfection consent.
Board Bill 80, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from J, Industrial District, to the G, Local Commercial and Office District in City Block 3919.03, including 3700, 3702, 3702H, 3704, and 3710 Laclede, and 11713 South Spring, and containing an emergency clause. It came out of the HUD's committee.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the perfection consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 6th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We dispense with line items 16 through 19. Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the motion for the courtesy resolution count.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adopt courtesy resolution to consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 106, sponsored by Alderwomen Ingracia and Green. The Board of Aldermen stand in support of the indigenous opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Alderman from the 6th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 106.
I move for unanimous consent to consider Resolution 106 for final adoption today.
Hearing no objection, please proceed.
I move for final adoption of Resolution 106.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th. I entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 15th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number 106. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We noted. We dispense with line item 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
Announcements.
No, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Okay. Announcements.
Next week, we have no scheduled committee meetings at the moment. Our next full board meeting is at 10 a.m. in Chambers on Friday, September 16th, 2016.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 19th.
Members of the board, I wanted to recognize the most significant ribbon cutting that I've had in a while because it's bringing history back to the ward. The IBEW local union number 1, the electrical union, has renovated their original office where the union was organized and started for the electrical group. And so the ribbon cutting will be on September 15th, which is next Thursday at 11 o'clock, and there'll be a reception along with that. But if you haven't been paying attention, if you can't make the ribbon cutting, drive by and see what they did to the grounds there. It's a strong addition to Martin Luther King Boulevard, most especially in that area. It was an abandoned building sitting there, some vacant lots looking ugly, but they renovated the building. They're going to have a museum there. People have opportunity to come, see some of the old materials that were used in wiring back in the day, and the space will be used by the union members as well. And for those who don't know, their convention will be here as well the following week, and they'll have over 3,000 members of the electrical union here in St. Louis. I thank them for renovating the building.
We also want to make sure to officially welcome Jennifer. I know some of you have had an opportunity to work with her. Welcome to your first full board meeting. Let's give her a round of applause. No, we are all very happy to have you here. And let's give a round of applause to Alderman Ogilvie. He's a new father. Congratulations, man. Don't look like you've lost any sleep yet, but I guess.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, welcome birth of my daughter, Saturday morning, Mara and Ogilvie. And I'll tell you, what a relief. You know, when the baby is born, it is an even bigger relief than when you're on election night, when you're hitting refresh on the Board of Elections website to see if you still got a job. It's even better than that. So, thank you.
All right, let's give him another round. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse. Let's go to the next one. First day back.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the alderman from the 4th and the 14th be excused for necessary absence.
Moved by the alderman from the 18th, seconded by the alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I was loud.
You almost had that one. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourns until Friday, September 16, 10 a.m.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 18th, seconded by the alderman from the 25th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.